Hey there, welcome to the 2010s. This was the time where I started actually getting to watch TV without my dad's permission. So let's talk about what was the best in sci-fi fantasy stuff. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where father and son sit down and today talk about sci-fi and fantasy television shows from the 2010s. I'm the son of that equation, Zach.
And I'm the father, Jim. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you're going to have a good time reflecting back on shows that weren't too long ago, but might be as far as 14 or so years back. So your memory, most of you, well, I'd say almost everybody watching this was probably alive in the previous decade.
Not
You might
necessarily,
be
but
8 and you stumbled on
probably.
this episode. We're probably not talking at your level.
Hey, maybe you're catching this episode in 20 years.
Oh, that's
Then there's
possible.
maybe plenty of you.
Okay.
Or the internet and YouTube has fallen apart by then. And hi, Skynet.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we are going to dive into the best science fiction and fantasy of the 2010s here today. And I'm going to review my top 10 list. This is not Zach's top 10 list. This is mine. He has opportunity all through to comment on what does he think of my opinions. And he's going to have opinions that conflict with mine because he was totally watching shows that he felt interested in and they don't all align with me.
Yeah, definitely got some wrong opinions in this decade that are still my opinions nonetheless. And then I've got a couple that might be right.
So I'm really interested to see what he thinks of the picks I put forward here. I think we should just get to this list then and find out. But I'll mention to all of you, be sure to like the episode, and go ahead and do it now. You can change your mind later and take that thumb off, but we don't want you to forget. Help us spread the word to YouTube that we're doing this crazy stuff here. We've got over 1,000 videos out on Fantasy for the Ages, so be sure to check all those other videos that are waiting for your pleasure and enjoyment. All right, I've got
how many
4 honorable mentions this time. For the first time, 4. And you'll understand when I get to the 4th one why I had to go just one more.
Sure, I will.
Or you may completely disagree with me. But let's get started. The honorable mention number 1 goes to DC's Legends of Tomorrow, which aired from 2016 to 2022. For some people, this is like one of their favorite shows. For me, I found it casually entertaining.
I ultimately go, whoever you are, either you're an Arrowverse person and all of these are in your top 10, or one of the shows probably hits your somewhere in their vibe, but none of the others. Legends of Tomorrow wasn't the one for me.
Now, this show follows a diverse group of misfit heroes and anti-heroes, who are perhaps the more interesting ones, who travel through time to prevent temporal aberrations and protect the timeline from various threats. Led by time traveler Rip Hunter, the team faces off against formidable foes, navigates historical events, and grapples with their own personal struggles, all while embracing a mix of humor, adventure, and camaraderie. I've never been a big DC Comics fan, so the source material this does draw from was not very familiar to me. I think that actually enhanced my enjoyment of the show. I could just enjoy it for what it was.
Here's the problem you've just unleashed on me. When thinking about sci-fi and fantasy things, I'd thought of a number of different directions. I hadn't considered comics. Don't ask me why, but there were a lot of comic shows in this decade.
Yeah.
And a lot that I actually liked. So now I'm having issues.
The comic shows are definitely a blend of fantasy and sci-fi. They definitely belong here. Some lean more one way than the other, but they're worthy. So yeah, you're going to see me mention some more. Honorable mention 2 goes to The 100, which aired from 2014 to 2020. And I did watch the entire run. That follows a group of juvenile delinquents sent back to a post-apocalyptic Earth nearly a century after a nuclear apocalypse to determine if the planet is habitable again. Now, I have to explain just a little bit. It almost sounds like they're sent back through time. No, they're up in orbiting space stations to escape the apocalypse that happened down there. And now they're going down to see, is it time? Can the Earth, has it come back enough that we could live here? As they navigate the challenges of survival, They encounter various factions and uncover dark secrets about their predecessors, leading to moral dilemmas and intense conflicts over the future of humanity. This show was intense
Mhm.
and often quite dark. And for me, at least, it was rather addictive. I binged through this show, all the seasons as they came out. I'm like, gimme, gimme. This is great.
I started this show. Then I read the books. Then I stopped the show.
Which is probably good that I never read the books. I just enjoyed the show for what it
They
was.
are very different, and I very much enjoyed what I got from the books, and therefore didn't really have the interest in continuing these things that suddenly felt wrong for me, which hurts because I think, looking back on it, what I know about the show, what I've seen, I think the show's better. But I just
Yeah.
couldn't do it.
See, I almost always want to read the source material first, but when I started this show, I did not know there was source material. You did tell me
Mhm.
after I'm already well into it and hooked on it. And I'm like, okay, I don't care. I'm just going to watch the show. Honorable mention 3. I have no idea if you watched it all. This is a show your mother likes, and I have watched some of it with her. Lucifer.
Oh, I love that show. It's great.
Okay, that started in 2016, ran through 2021. It follows Lucifer Morningstar,
Mhm.
the devil, who abandons his throne in hell to run a nightclub in Los Angeles and indulge in a carefree lifestyle. He's sick and tired of the grind and he wants more out of life. When he becomes involved in solving crimes alongside LAPD detective Chloe Decker, he grapples with his identity, redemption, and complex relationships with celestial beings, ultimately exploring themes of love, free will, and the nature of good and evil. Lead actor Tom Ellis absolutely nails his performance as Lucifer. He brings charm, humor, and some gravitas to the character.
Lucifer took a couple of pieces from a couple of different shows and put them together to make something that was absolutely wonderful. Specifically, it took like the best parts of like Angel and Grimm,
Okay.
and you put those
Okay.
into one show, and it was like, oh,
And I think it is based on comics. There's a source
it's connected
comic
in at
that
least
it flows
loosely with
from.
like DC.
Yeah, but really entertaining show. Honorable mention 4 goes to Doctor Who. Again, that's the one I'm
Yeah.
like, I did not have room in my top 10 for Doctor Who. There's just way too much that I thoroughly loved in this decade. But Doctor Who was still a powerful thing going on there, so I had to do one more honorable mention. No show, I want to make a point here, no show
Mhm.
has been featured on more of the top 10 series than Doctor Who.
That's fair.
This decade,
Um,
I like I said, man, it's just so packed with great content, but this show has staying power. What are we dealing with in this decade? We've got the 11th Doctor, portrayed incredibly by, I think, your favorite, Matt Smith.
Definitely my favorite when I was first watching it.
Okay.
It's a close race now after Rach and I did a rewatch recently, which is why Doctor Who in this decade definitely hits actually my top 10 instead of just an honorable mention.
Doesn't surprise me.
Because looking back on it, I think objectively, Capaldi's possibly the best Doctor in the history of the show,
And that's what else we get
including
this
the old.
decade. The 12th Doctor, Peter Capaldi. We get to see them embark on thrilling adventures through time and space, alongside various companions, including Amy Pond, Clara Oswald, and Bill Potts.
I'm offended you didn't include Rory.
He's the added on. Come on.
He is the better half of that duo.
This era explored complex narratives, including the Doctor's identity and morality, while introducing new enemies and revisiting classic foes. Some of those foes just never go away. You're jumping through time. Of course, they're still there. Ultimately leading to a deeper exploration of the show's mythology and emotional depth. So it had a lot to add. It really continued to build this massive warehouse of Doctor Who stuff.
Big things happened for Doctor Who this decade. Heck, John Hurt hopped in and suddenly went, he's the Doctor too now. So when you get that kind of legend just showing up for a bit, you can't really go wrong.
There you go. But now, the real top 10 for me. And number 10 is Star Trek Discovery, which aired from 2017 through 2024. After having no mainstream TV series of Star Trek since Voyager signed off in 2001, Discovery comes in with a big splash on the fledgling CBS All Access streaming service in 2017. You could not watch it on the main network. You had to subscribe to CBS All Access. And it worked. People just flocked to this All Access thing because they needed Star Trek. Honestly, this was a big catalyst towards moving much more of America off of network television and into streaming on-demand services. Star Trek Discovery follows the crew of the USS Discovery as they navigate the tumultuous events of the Federation's conflict with the Klingons and later explore the far reaches of space, uncovering new worlds and civilizations, as Star Trek is wont to do. The series emphasizes themes of diversity, inclusion, and personal growth, while showcasing advancements in technology and storytelling within the Star Trek universe. Did you watch all of Discovery?
I didn't. The Star Trek Discovery is one that everything I know about it tells me it will end up being, when I eventually watch all of it, either my favorite or second favorite of all the Star Trek stuff.
I think it would be, yeah.
But I haven't gotten to it, and it's one of those things where it's on a streaming service that I don't really use very often anyways, so I have to go out of my way to get to it.
There you go. Number 9, The Flash, 2014 to 2023. The Flash follows forensic scientist Barry Allen, who gains super speed abilities after a particle accelerator explosion, allowing him to fight crime and protect Central City as the titular hero. As he battles various metahuman villains, thank you, DC Comics, we get metahumans, Barry also confronts personal challenges and the consequences of time travel, all while building strong relationships with his friends, family, and fellow heroes. The Flash series has a bunch of crossover elements with Arrow, both produced on the same network, the CW. Where Arrow tends to be more dark and gritty, The Flash was often softer, more lighthearted, though it certainly has its dark and heavy moments as well. I definitely like The Flash. Good show, my number 7.
The Flash was my favorite of the Arrowverse. Still is. That being said, I fully accept that it starts kind of cheesy with not always great writing and gets worse. Do I have a Star Labs sweatshirt in my closet? Yes. But I accept the flaws.
Well, it like I said, it goes through 2023, but sorry, you're not going to see it on the next decade list. No. Number 8 is a show you mentioned earlier, Grimm, 2011 to 2017. Grimm followed Nick Burkhart, a homicide detective who discovers he is a Grimm, a guardian tasked with keeping the balance between humanity and mythical creatures known as the Vessin. As he navigates his new reality, Nick faces moral dilemmas and dangers from both the Vessin community and those who seek to exploit their powers, all while unraveling the mysteries of his family's legacy. Now, back in 2011, I was fascinated to see a show like this appear on a major network. This was NBC in a primetime slot, and it was successful. I was like, holy crap, this is working. So I was a big fan. Your mother was too.
I enjoyed
both
watching
tune in for these episodes, and you were watching as well.
This is one I watched. I went back and watched other parts that after we had cut the cord and we weren't catching the tail end of this season, I went back and watched it, and I forgot about the show until about a month ago. I come home and Rachel was binging it, and I went, oh yeah, I loved this show.
This is another one where I should do a rewatch, because yes, I'm sure I missed a few episodes here and there. It was just so good. Number 7 is one that's not going to be on your top 10, but The Walking Dead, 2010 through 2022. So the majority of the show filled this decade.
Why do you think that's not going to be on my top 10?
Because you kind of fell off The Walking Dead along the way, was my impression.
I fell off in the last 2 seasons or something, but
okay.
Up through a bunch of it, I was watching it separate from you. I was watching this in college, I'm pretty sure.
All right. Well, The Walking Dead centers on a group of survivors navigating a post-apocalyptic world overrun by zombies, known as walkers, after a pandemic decimates the population. Led by former sheriff's deputy Rick Grimes, the group faces not only the constant threat of walkers, but also the moral complexities and dangers posed by other human factions. As they struggle to maintain their humanity in a lawless world, the series explores themes of survival, community, and the often harsh realities of human nature. So, yes, this is a show about a zombie apocalypse, but it's never really about the zombies. It's about the way people persevere and overcome or are overcome.
I'm not a big zombie guy in any of my various medias. That being said, Walking Dead is up there for me. I did very much enjoy it, and I think, especially for this decade, it even belongs in like top 5, if only because it is one of those shows that everyone was talking about.
Yeah, they were. So not top 5 for me, which means I must have 6 really great shows still coming.
Apparently.
I did watch the entire run of The Walking Dead, and I read the comics upon which it was based. The show has spawned many spin-offs.
Mm-hmm.
The earliest being Fear the Walking Dead,
Yep.
which I'm still watching. I'm behind. I didn't finish it when, I don't know, it might still be on, but I'm certainly a few seasons behind, but that's been a great show. And then numerous other spin-offs that are still out there that started up when The Walking Dead ended. So I got a lot to catch up on, but I just don't watch as much TV anymore, so it's hard to do. Number 6 is Westworld, 2016 to 2022. Westworld is actually a remake. There's a previous Westworld out there that I never watched and really just didn't even consider for any previous decade. But this, a sci-fi series, set in a futuristic theme park where guests can interact with lifelike androids known as hosts who cater to their every desire in a Western-style environment. As the hosts begin to gain self-awareness and question their reality, the show delves into themes of consciousness, morality, and the consequences of artificial intelligence, which is really apt for us these days. This show, I thought, was really well produced and goes places with the plot that you would never have predicted, especially as you're watching the first season. So, wow.
It's now occurring to me because I was like, I'm pretty sure did I ever finish the show? And I'm just realizing now, no, I watched season 3 when it came out. I missed I haven't finished it. I've never watched season 4.
Well, there you have.
I'm going to need to go do this.
There you go. You are welcome. Number 5 for me is Arrow, 2012 to 2020. So pretty much almost all of it was right in this decade. I mentioned this show when I talked about The Flash, and since it's higher on my list, you can see my personal preference. I like the darker, grittier content. Arrow follows billionaire playboy Oliver Queen, who returns to Star City after being stranded on a deserted island for 5 years. So we think. Where he has honed his archery and combat skills. The writing to this show is just brilliant.
It's had much better writing, for sure.
The levels of mystery that are revealed over time. Layers like an onion. Arriving back in Star City, he takes on the vigilante persona of the Green Arrow. And he fights crime and corruption while seeking redemption for his past, because he sucked when he disappeared. He forges alliances with friends and allies along the way, but there's just, again, so much more to the plot, and I could do a whole freaking episode just breaking down Arrow, but that is not what we're here for, but it's definitely a strong number 5 for me. Any other thoughts on Arrow, Zach?
I think I've kind of said it about the Arrowverse. It's not my favorite of them, but not because it was bad. I very much enjoyed it.
Okay, number 4 is the rest of Supernatural. So the whole decade is filled with the rest of Supernatural, because it was in my previous list, but here we are again. I mean, it was number 3 in the previous decade, and now it's still number 4.
It doesn't belong to be number 4 in this decade.
No.
It's enjoyable. It's
the kind of content we were getting is just so much what I enjoy watching, the kinds of things that they're experiencing. But I know there's some soap opera-ish layers to some of this stuff. You get kind of into nonsensicalness at times, but I still was enjoying it. In season 6 through 15, Sam and Dean Winchester confront increasingly formidable foes. I mean, when they're dealing with archangels, that is not funny. There's some crap there. Michael, dang. Um, they're dealing with the rise of the Leviathans.
That's
Also, the introduction of the sinister entity known as God. That was a complex addition there, and how they chose to write that into the show. They also are grappling with personal loss, shifting allegiances, their own evolving destinies. The series continues to delve into themes of family, sacrifice, and that battle between good and evil. But then it finally builds up to that dramatic conclusion, testing their bonds and beliefs. So you wouldn't even put it on top 10?
I mean, maybe at the end fringes of it. It's something where I'm like, does it belong in the conversation? Sure. But I look at what you put it ahead of, and I'm like, no, those 10 seasons are not better than The Walking Dead.
Okay. All right. We're fickle. And those of you watching, if you're on Team Zach for this one, let us know. But I have 3 shows where I'm very confident they belong above everything before it. So number 3 is Stranger Things. 2016 to the present. We have one more season coming out next year. But the first 3 seasons happened between 2016 and 2019. That's why it's number 3. This show, hit the jackpot with its dead-on nostalgic portrayal of the 1980s Midwest Americana, while telling a dark and terrifying story of fantasy and horror.
Mm-hmm.
In the first 3 seasons of Stranger Things, we're in the small town of Hawkins, Indiana, and it's thrown into chaos when a young boy named Will Byers goes missing, prompting his friends and family to uncover dark secrets surrounding that mysterious Hawkins National Laboratory and the existence of the Upside Down. As they encounter the telekinetic girl 11, who escapes from the lab, the group faces terrifying creatures and government forces, while they forge deep friendships and navigate the challenges of adolescence. That's worked into it too. Of course, we end up getting Russia involved. Season 3 introduces the Mind Flayer and trying to take control of the entire town. There's all sorts of things that go on. And then the struggle to maintain their bonds of friendship amidst the complexities of growing up, the different pulls that each of them are feeling, and of course, the looming danger of the supernatural world. And I'll be talking about Stranger Things more in the next decade's show.
I know this show is good, and I will get back to it eventually. But I watched the first 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Started the third, and I couldn't get into it at that time. The start of the third felt a little bit slower to me. I wasn't hooked, and I had other things to watch. Haven't been back since.
I've watched the first 2 seasons 3 times, the third season twice, and the fourth season just once. But I'll watch it again before season 5 comes out. I watched the first 2 seasons twice just on my own, but then I convinced your mom to try Stranger Things. That's why they get a third view. She loved it too. We went all the way through, and that's where I got to season 3 and did a repeat with her, and then we both watched season 4. I've seen some clips of what's coming out in season 5, and it looks good.
I know it's good. I'll get to it.
Number 2 on the list, The Expanse, 2015 to 2022. A very well executed adaptation of the first 6 books of the 9-book series by James S.A. Corey, along with some of the short stories and novellas they wrote. The Expanse is a sci-fi series set in the future where humanity has colonized our solar system, focusing on a disparate group of characters, including a detective, a ship's crew, a politician, and how they become embroiled in a conspiracy that threatens the fragile peace between Earth, Mars, and the Belt. As tensions escalate and a mysterious alien technology emerges, the series explores themes of power, survival, and the complexities of human nature against a backdrop of political intrigue and space exploration. This is a highly addictive show. Binging right through it, 100% recommended.
This is a great adaptation of a great series. I am glad I read the books first, or at least had read what I needed to of the books before I got into it. But it's one that is simultaneously a good show and a great adaptation.
Worthy of being number 2? At least being high on a top
Well,
10?
I know what number 1's going to be, so probably, yeah.
I figured you had to know what number 1 is. Go ahead, take a guess.
Number 1's Game of Thrones.
Game of
There's
Thrones.
nothing that it could have been in this decade.
Completely in this decade, 2011 to 2019.
Even accounting for not sticking the landing at the end. Like,
even
there is nothing that beats it in this decade.
Over the course of the decades of television I've covered, 1950s through this, fantasy has been occasionally present, but sci-fi has dominated. This show changed that completely. The final decade has a lot more big fantasy because of this show.
Because of this show. This show changed the game for fantasy in TV because almost everything before it is B-level stuff at best.
Yeah. Game of Thrones is a fantasy drama set in the fictional continents of Westeros and Essos, where noble families vie for control of the Iron Throne and the Seven Kingdoms. As political intrigue, betrayal, and warfare unfold, the series weaves together multiple storylines involving dragons, the undead, and the relentless struggle for power, revealing the complexities of honor, loyalty, and morality. Ultimately, the show explores the consequences of ambition and the harsh realities of life in a brutal world, culminating, nice word, Jim, culminating in a dramatic and controversial conclusion. Yeah,
so that's your top 10.
That's my top 10. I was a little disappointed with the final big finish of season 8. They should have done better, but still, it's not horrible. And just, there was so much good watching throughout those seasons. And I've read the source material. I do enjoy those books. I don't know if we'll ever get any more books, but that's not what we're here to talk about today.
No.
Any series that definitely needs some love, Zach, that I didn't touch?
Yes. I've got a couple honorable mentions and then a couple that I think actually might make my top 10.
Okay.
Notably, in honorable mention category, I would be remiss if I don't mention this show. It's another BBC show that it's very near and dear to my heart. Merlin. This ran from 2008 to 2012.
Oh, how did I not think of Merlin? Yes.
It could have belonged in either list, but I don't think it makes the top 10 for either. I do, however, very much love that show.
That's a great show. Good one.
Next, to add in a couple of guilty pleasures of mine here, Being Human, the US version.
I thought about that.
2011 to 2014. Yeah. Honestly, anything that Sam Witwer is in is going to be fun and good. He's a fantastic actor and voice actor. But I enjoyed that show. But similar vibes. Then switching over to the originals, the spinoff from the Vampire Diaries. I love this so much better. Set in New Orleans. It really hits there for me, and I love some of these characters. And then, same vein, Teen Wolf. That was 2011 to 2017. Shows that I just enjoyed and binged, especially in kind of some of my high school years.
Yeah, that was not... I don't think I was the audience for most of those shows.
Now, ones that I think actually might belong in the conversation for top 10 list. A little bit of comic love here. Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I really enjoyed that show.
Yeah. Wow. How did I not think of that one? See, there's so much in this decade.
That was 2013 to 2020. Then moving to something a little bit grittier, Titans, a more adult take on Teen Titans, Dick Grayson's solo adventure and journey there. Darker, grittier, very much enjoy it. And some of my favorite DC stuff, period. Not on my top 10 list, definitely on Melissa's. Star Wars The Clone Wars. That animated series, it ran from 2008 to 2020, and it is phenomenal. I don't connect with it as much, but some people might have this as their number one even.
I suppose it's so subjective.
And then just last couple things here. I really enjoyed, did you ever watch Dark Matter?
I did not.
I think it was a Netflix one.
Yeah, I remember seeing it, but
it was a
I
very
didn't watch
interesting concept, a little bit unique in that, and reminiscent of some of the older true sci-fi stuff in a new way, better quality stuff, and I really enjoyed it. But then more on the supernatural side of things, you're going to be kicking yourself for this one as well. Van Helsing.
No, no. I watched Van Helsing. I loved Van Helsing, but it's B level. It's
To
not
me,
top 10 worthy.
it's it's maybe like the 10 slot. I
I
really enjoyed it.
appreciate that you felt
It's
it was that
very
good.
uniquely its thing. It introduced me to some actors, actresses that I've enjoyed things that they've gone on to do since
Sure.
then.
Yeah. But
And then
it's like that kind of show you're only going to see on the Sci-Fi channel. You know, it's just not quite elevated enough. But I liked it.
the final thing to mention is probably within my top 5. And this is the one where I had forgotten about this until you reminded me that comics are on the table. Daredevil.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Daredevil, specifically on Netflix.
Specifically the Netflix Daredevil.
It was a
That
nice,
is
gritty reimagining of Daredevil.
one of, if not the best comic book show for me.
Okay. But not the spin-offs that flowed from it. No, no
Iron
Iron
Fist,
Fist. You know, Iron Fist
Luke
for you.
Cage, Jessica Jones. I enjoyed these. They weren't as good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daredevil was the best.
Okay. Well, we've hit a broad swath of great stuff. And again, it was a great decade to enjoy the fantasy, sci-fi, even horror genre. All this stuff that was speculative like this. There's just great options. And it only keeps getting better. So be sure to look for our final episode of this series. It'll be coming out tomorrow, the 2020's. I think you'll like what you see. And maybe you'll be throwing things at the screen because of what we didn't like that you love. But how about this list? My list, the things Zach just added to the conversation. Put your comments down in the comment box. We love to see your own personal takes and experiences about this kind of content. What did we completely miss that it would be an absolute top 10, top 5? We want to know. Heck, maybe we've completely missed it and you'll give us something we can watch. Again, we also ask you, please like the episode and subscribe if you haven't. I think that's enough. This is a good one.
We're good. We're good.
We got to move on to that next decade. So let's wrap this. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.